We're, I think, straightened out from my little snafu thing from before. And Mark 14, chapter 42 to 65. I am is the title. And you know, I think, the significance of that term, I am. It's easy for us to look at the mercy and the kindness of Jesus and then see what was being done so unfairly by the authorities and yell, "That's unfair!" Yeah, that's unfair. It certainly appears that Jesus was very passive as he moved forward. He didn't verbally defend himself, right? Or physically resist being arrested, which is what a lot of people would have done. Judas came to the garden with the crowd armed and ready for anything. They were there under the authority of the high priest, the teachers of the law, and the elders. Judas had arranged a signal with them because it was dark and it would be hard to see. The one he would, what was the symbol? Kiss would be the man that they would arrest. Once they saw that signal, they would arrest him. Okay, I think we know the significance of the term I am. When Moses was being given his job to go to Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go out of bondage. Let my people go out into the wilderness where they can worship me." He gave him lots of signs and lots of turning the staff into a snake and the snake back into a staff, and he did a lot of those things. Exactly. So when Jesus was asked, who should I say is sending me?
Moses?
And Jesus, no, I'm gone past that Moses story. Unfortunately, I need to signal.
When he said that, it was he was talking about Abraham's been gone for a long time. Are you saying that you know Abraham?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he said, when before Abraham was, I am.
I am. He was also saying, who should I say sent me? And he said, tell him I am who I am. That's really how, that was
Moses.
or Popeye wanted to. So that I am, just the term I am was blasphemy in the hearing of the Pharisees, because that they knew what that meant. That's you're saying you're God. So verse 42. Verse 42 just says there in the garden, he says, remember he's been in the garden, and he's 3 times he's had to go wake up Peter, James, and John and tell them to keep watch. So now he finally says, "Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." That's verse 42. So they're in the garden. Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." I don't think Jesus was going to try to run away. So, but that's what he said. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Rabbi," and he kissed him. The men seized Jesus and arrested him. Then one of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Okay, which of the apostles is the impetuous one?
Simon.
Simon Peter. The one that is it's like shoot first and then ask questions kind of thing. And Jesus says, "Am I leading a rebellion? That you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled." In other words, regardless of this, you had your chances, but then everyone deserted him and fled. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. The scholars believe this was Mark. This was John Mark. That was that person. And of course, he's writing this gospel, so he just said, "a young man."
You can own up to that one.
Yeah, and I got to own up to that one.
Well, the first speaker came and said, "Stay over there."
Yeah. Right?
Well, he wasn't a young man anymore when he wrote this.
Yeah. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. And I will say that just so you get an idea. The temple sits on a hill, and there are a pretty substantial set of stairs that go down from there and crosses the Kidron Valley, and then goes up up a path going up, and if you kept going up to the top of the Mount of Olives, but the garden was there. There's actually a graveyard up there as well. Today, I mean. So when they wanted to take him to Caiaphas, to the high priest's house, they walked down in reverse, walked down the hill, across the Kidron Valley, up the steps, and then Caiaphas' house was fairly close by. So this is the middle of the night. The one thing that will help make some sense out of what we're going to hear next is the fact that Jewish law prevented them from having a trial at night.
Yeah.
We might say the same thing today. Oh, you're gonna be remanded to the care of the jailer, and you're gonna sit in jail until the morning when the judge comes, and then we'll have a trial. In this case, they wanted to have their little kangaroo court thing going on in the middle of the night.
Get it over
Yeah, they wanted to come to up to this point, what they had was the arrest of Jesus, whom that's what they wanted. But now, going through all of their minds is, how are we going to have him killed?
Justified.
Yeah, we've got to have some kind of evidence. We've got to have some. We've got him. Well, it's wonderful. But everything they're doing is completely against the law. But that's not going to stop them from doing what they're doing. Okay. Peter followed him, Jesus, at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. So we have a courtyard around especially the front, has a gate, and then you have a kind of an inner courtyard, and then there's the house and so forth. So Peter follows, he walks right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin, which is the Jewish Supreme Court, 72 members, were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. They couldn't find any evidence. If you're going to try someone with your religious leaders being the judges, the high priest being the judge, then you can look into the Jewish law and you can see which kind of offenses were deserving of death. And blaspheming, saying that you're God, is one of those that you would be stoned to death for saying. But there's more going on here. Then one stood up, verse 56. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. So even then, you had to have, if you're going to have a witness, the two witnesses you bring in better get their story straight before they go up there, because they've got to agree. If they don't agree with their stories, then it's going to get thrown out, even then. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple, which is not exactly what he said, and in 3 days we'll build another, not made by man. Yet even then their testimony did not agree. Of course, what Jesus said was, destroy this temple, his body, and in 3 days I will rebuild it, I will resurrect. So they tried. Why were they aiming at the temple? Why were they even bringing up the temple? Because to the Jews' mind, there are only certain things that are highly reverent. One of those things is Moses. One of those things is the temple. And if you say anything bad about Moses or bad about the temple, then you're really cruising for a bruising, right? You're asking for problems. Verse 60. Then the high priest stood up before them and he asked Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One? Jesus said, I am. I am, meaning I am the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One. And then, if that wasn't enough of an answer, and you will see the Son of Man, which is Jesus, sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One, the God the Father, and coming on the clouds of heaven. And because every eye will see when he returns. Verse 63, the high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses? He asked. You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, prophesy. And the guards took him and beat him. There is there's part of us that when we hear this, we're just, and by the way, we watch a movie where the innocent person is being abused, or worse, children or women or whatever, and we're saying, my sense of righteous indignation is just fired up because this should not happen. Is there not someone who's going to save him from having this happen? We know that Jesus did not have his life taken from him.
Mm-hmm.
He willingly gave his life up. And he actually says those same words. It's not a it's important because if he was having his life taken away from him and it wasn't a willful act of obedience to the Father, then it would kind of turn around the whole thing, the whole reason for him. If you're voluntarily sacrificing your life for someone else, and it's not somebody forcing you to do it, then it doesn't have the same value as it does when somebody is actually doing it because they want to do it.
It's not a sacrifice.
Yeah, it's no longer a sacrifice, that's for sure. We know, we're familiar with the verse from Zechariah about, I will strike the shepherd and you will all fall away. And that's exactly what happened. All of these supposedly followers of Jesus that we thought up till now were pretty steadfast about following him. I think they were following him for the wrong reasons at that time.
It's sifting of the flour, the silver, and the dross.
Mm-hmm.
Trial by fire.
What would it have taken to stay there with your rabbi and be arrested?
Faith.
Think of that group. They're in the garden. There's this show of power, and they're arresting Jesus, and everybody flees. Everybody runs away. Whatever it was, they didn't have it because they all left. And I think if they had realized at the time that Jesus was surrendering his own life, that he wasn't having it taken away, then it might have meant something different with them. They were concerned about surviving the arrest of their beloved Jesus, their rabbi, with their own security, their own life. We know what's going to happen next, because we know that in the morning, as soon as it's daylight, the Romans would be at work. And the court system and everything would be full on. It wasn't we go to work at 9 o'clock. When the sun came up, they were going to work. And that they were going to present Jesus to Pilate. And Pilate didn't live in Jerusalem. In fact, most of the Romans really really hated Jerusalem. It was dusty, it was dirty, it was not what, if they'd ever been to Rome and saw all the polished marble floors and of course the Roman road, the Romans did a great job of making, paving with stones. They hated Jerusalem, and plus there were those Jews that lived there. It was the Jews' land, but they didn't have any desire to be around them. They were troublemakers. They were whining and complaining and everything that they did. And plus the Romans had to go and collect taxes from them, and they had to put up with all of that. They had to use force to get where they wanted to get. But he did live in an area that was on the coast of the Gulf, Caesarea by the sea. And it was an area where there were a lot of retired Roman officers that lived there. It was a beautiful place. That's where he actually lived. He had to make that trek to Jerusalem to do his job as the governor. So he's not real happy about being there in the first place. So now he's got these high priests coming to him and saying, we got this troublemaker. Now they can't say, they already know this, they can't say, he says he's God, and according to our law, he's got to die.
You don't care about it.
Romans don't care about that. Settle that stuff yourself.
Care about peace and taxes.
The Pax de Roma, the peace of Rome. If you're setting up a rebellion or insurrection, now we're talking. Now we're going to step in and we're going to keep the peace. That's our job. And so they had to come up with something to make Jesus look like he was a insurrectionist. That he was somebody that was trying to get people all charged up about overthrowing Rome. And if they could convince him that Jesus was a rebel, then they could try him for treason against Rome. Now there's something that treason would be. Certainly, you could be, the sentence for that would be death. So we're gonna hear more about this next week. There's so many great verses in here. They thought, the Jewish officials, they thought, we've caused him to incriminate himself. He said, yes, I am the Christ. Up till then, everything they tried to do was falling apart. The witnesses couldn't get their story straight. They couldn't find anything worthy of, in their minds, they could. But they knew this wasn't going to mean anything. But in Isaiah 53:7, and by the way, we're talking about
Coal.
take the burning coal and touch my lips, purify my lips, because Isaiah had said,
Woe is me.
I'm a man of unclean lips. In other words, the things that come out of my mouth are not godly, and you want to use me. Who will go in our place? Who will do our bidding? And Isaiah said, here I am, use me. But, so that's where that Cole thing. So here's another from Isaiah. Isaiah the prophet, little guy, rich family. Like a sheep led to the slaughter, he did not open his mouth. That's 53:7. Jesus said nothing to his accusers. He didn't try to, you got the wrong guy, you know, us Jews, we all look alike, he's probably another guy, it's not me, it might be my brother. He didn't try to make any excuses.
He's the one-armed man.
Exactly. He was giving up his life.
And it speaks the greater love hath no man than he that lay down his life.
Yeah,
And that was the
For
lesson.
his friends.
for his friends. There is a, of course, when you're looking at Mark, most of your Bibles probably will have, at the beginning of a chapter, they'll have in small little letters what verses in Luke, what verses in Matthew have to do with the same subject matter that Mark is speaking about in that particular chapter. And you can glean a lot of additional information because you know Mark is a man of few words. He speaks in bullet points. And along comes Dr. Luke, and he's a detail man. He comes in and he's got all kinds of detailed information. And sometimes even in John there's some additional. So it's kind of interesting to the next time you're reading through wherever you're reading, is to look at that particular and see look up some of the other Gospels and see what they have to say, if you're in the Gospels. Now, we've got one more, this Wednesday, we've got one more lesson in the series called Follow, of Andy Stanley's. And then the following Wednesday, we're going to have movie night. And Judy had mentioned a good, would seem, I watched the trailer for it as well. It seemed like a very, very, very interesting movie for us to see. So kind of block out on your calendar for not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. And I'll remind you